Hey everyone, welcome back to 20 Minutes of Code. So in the last video, we got the local website running on our machine. So you can see it's a new day, the weather's different. And we also have forecast here, and this one takes us back home. Cool, so this is running on localhost, which is great if that's all you want to run it on, have it on your local machine. But generally nowadays, people will be deploying applications like this to the cloud. So we'll be using something called Heroku. And this platform allows us to deploy Python code to the internet, and then we can access it through a link in the web browser, for example, myweatherapp.com or something like that. So we're just going to sign up for Heroku. To get to that page, you can just Google Heroku, and it's the first link here. Cool, so I'll just create all of this and we'll be back shortly. All right, so I've just filled out the forms and my account is created. That's interesting. So I get an error straight away. Let's see if we can log in manually. Cool. Are you in Italy? No, accept. That's just their terms of service. Awesome. So here we are on the dashboard and it's pretty empty, which is fine because we don't have any apps. I'll just dismiss that banner. And what we're going to do in this video is we're actually going to create an application. We're going to put our environment variables in there, and then we're going to set up an automated pipeline through GitHub Actions so that every time we commit code to a particular branch, we're just going to use master in this video. The code will automatically get packaged up and the container will get shipped to Heroku, and then the code on the internet will update to reflect our changes. Cool, so we should get started. That's the answer, so not that one. Yeah, this one here. Cool. So what we do need is the Heroku command line interface. So you can see if I type Heroku in, I got all of this stuff coming back. Now, you may not have that on your machine, and it's just a very simple download. So if you just Google like this, then they have download and install. And so on Mac, you can type this in to download it with brew. Ubuntu's here, and then Windows, pretty much the most easiest. You just get the executable installer, and then that installs it for you. Once you have downloaded that, if you run Heroku in your terminal, and if you still get no response, so if nothing came back there, what you could do is restart this terminal so you get a fresh session, and then it should work. Just going to log out of my previous session, just so it's all up to date. Cool. So the first command we want to run is Heroku login, and press any key to open the browser. Log into the CLI. Yay, cool. That's nice and easy. Cool, so it's all logged in for us. Excellent. Now we're going to head back to the code. And so what we're going to do first is actually create the Docker container. And what Docker is, it's a virtual environment where you can pretty much share your code in the most easiest way possible. Anyone with Docker can run that container and they will have exactly the same environment. So right now I'm on Windows and running this app on localhost. If I built this inside a container, whether you're on Windows, Mac, or something else, it doesn't matter. Whether it's in Heroku, it doesn't matter. They'll just simply run that container. And you'll notice that Docker is pretty common nowadays. Oops, not Docker, Dockerfile. And it's used in all of the workplaces I've been in, all of the large scale organizations. Cool, so create a file called Dockerfile with a capital D. And we're going to use the Python. We'll just use latest. You can pin it to a version like 3 point whatever, but we'll just use latest for this example. And then we're going to copy some files into this. So we want our requirements.txt, and we want to copy that to app requirements.txt. If you don't have a requirements.txt file, then you can just, oh, I don't have one. Cool, so what we can do here, I'm inside my virtual environment, and to get there, the command that I typed was source env scripts activate. And back in the first video, we set up that virtual environment. So hopefully this is all familiar to you. So we'll just go pip freeze requirements.txt. Cool. So this will grab all of the packages that show up in pip list. So the ones that we need to do our, request.get, Flask, all that sort of stuff, their dependencies. And it will output them into this text file here. And that makes it nice and easy because in Docker, we can just copy that across and then we can actually depend on that for our installation. So we're just going to change our directory to app because that's where we've copied the file. So we've now gone into that directory. We'll go pip install -r, which stands for recursive. That just means install all of the things in the file in a simple way. And we're going to copy over .app. Sorry, not .app. We're going to copy .to app. So we're going to copy all of our files here into the app directory. And then because we're running on localhost 5000, just for the demo, we're going to expose port 5000. And so that means in our virtual container, we're going to open the same port that our web app is running on. And so that way we can access it from, say, localhost 5000 on our machine. Entry point. There's a few different ways to actually run your server, but we're just going to use this one. But there are other ways, like you could do a run command, or you could, there's a few others I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll just use this for now. All right, so you should have Docker installed, which is one of the dependencies you need for this video. It's very simple to download, Windows, Mac, same sort of thing. Just click one of these and you'll have it in no time, nice and easy. And then you should also have the same sort of test where if you type Docker, something comes back. That lets you know it's installed. You can also run it on your machine. So it's running here on my machine. All right. So we will go docker build dot, which means build the Docker file in my current directory, and we'll just tag it app. So the tag just identifies this image because you might have 400 images on your machine, so you can just tag them. Usually in the workplace, they'll be tagged with a git char or like a git commit, and it just makes it easier to link it back to the code. So if we go Docker image list, you can see here the ones I haven't tagged are none, so that's not very helpful, right? I actually don't know what that is, but here we can see app has been tagged. Cool, so we can go Docker run, and we need to go -p 5000. So that's going to open, well, publish it to the port 5000 and tag app. See if I got that right off the top of the head. Cool. So we're getting an error here, which is saying, hey, I don't know your environment variables, like your API key, which is fair enough. So we'll need some way to tell it what these environment variables are. So what we can do is we can actually pass in our .m file that we've created earlier, which has all of the Flask information. So to do that, we can go docker run, and then we're going to do p 5000, and then we're going to put in m file.env, and the image we want to run is called app. Cool, so that seems happy. But what we'll notice is if we actually go to localhost, nothing's actually happening. So the container's not running. And the reason for that is in the Docker file for this entry point saying run server.py, nothing's actually running here because before we were invoking Flask directly to say, hey, run this API. So we actually have to add a little bit of extra code to say when this file is called directly, do something else. So you've probably seen this before if you've done Python. But if you haven't, that's totally cool. So this pretty much says if the file is called directly. That's how I've learned that part. And so os.environ.get. And what we're going to do here is say if the port environment variable is defined, use it. Otherwise default to 5000. And so that's stored in a variable called port. And so now what we want to do is run. We'll just turn on debug. You don't actually need this, but we'll just have it on in case something goes wrong. And then port equals port. Cool. I'll just check that my server is actually called app. Yeah, it is. So now we're just saying we're calling run on this Flask class here. So we're saying run Flask, and we're going to give it a port, which is either going to be an environment variable named port. So if we had in here like port equals 123, it'll be that port. Otherwise, the default is 5000, which aligns nicely with what we're exposing. Cool, let's try that. Right, let's see if that's running in Docker. Nope, it doesn't seem to be. And the reason for that is I forgot we actually have to rebuild. So let's cancel that. So docker build dot tag. So this is going to collect the new changes in our code. Cool, Docker image list. 5 seconds ago. Cool. So then that docker run command. This. And I'll have all these commands in the README, so you won't need to panic about, what commands to enter. Cool. So now we can see it's running. Excellent. And we can see it's running here. Cool. If you want to see logs, we can just leave this open. This is just the Docker for Windows, but you don't really need it, to be honest. Cool. There's our app. Current weather. And forecast. Awesome. Now, with the time that's remaining, let's get this deployed through GitHub. So we're going to make a new folder, going to call it .github. And then inside here, I'll just have a check workflows and then main.yaml. It's hard to remember all of this stuff off the dome, so bear with me. Cool. Now, for the sake of time, I'll actually just copy this file and then I'll explain it to you. So you can grab this on the GitHub repo. So what we're doing here is we're defining a workflow and we've called it deploy to Heroku. You can call it whatever you wish. When someone pushes code to the branch master, we're going to do some stuff. And so the job is going to build inside Ubuntu. It's going to use an environment called Heroku, which we haven't made yet. And then it's going to go through some steps. It's going to use these two things here are add-ons. So it's code someone else has written. So the first add-on here just checks out the code from GitHub. And then the second add-on here gives you a way to deploy that code to Heroku. And these with things here are like variables or arguments you can pass in. So we're going to pass in a Heroku API key. We're going to name our app something. And we're also going to pass in the email for our Heroku account. We're going to tell it to use Docker. And we're going to say, change the stack to container. This is just things that Heroku needs so that it can understand we're pushing a container. Cool, so I've saved that. And now what we need to do is, I'll use the other terminal. Actually, no, I won't. So Heroku login. I think I already did this in the other terminal, but I'll just do it again. Cool. And then we're going to go Heroku, create something. I'll actually steal the commands from here. This is just in the README of the final version. So we're going to go, Heroku create migrate weather number 2. Cool. So this has created a project in Heroku named migrate weather 2. We'll set the stack to container manually. We don't really need to because the GitHub Actions is going to do it for us. Set stack container, missing app my great weather 2. Cool. And then we can actually push the code and set environment variables. So for this environment variable setting, this is how you do it manually, but the workflow, we could also pass them in. But what we'll do is we'll just do it manually. So we'll say Flask environments production. Oops. Dash app. Cool. And we'll just repeat these with our other envs. Flask app. The last one. Cool, so that's all our environment variables set. So if we go back to Heroku here, we can see migrate weather 2. And if we go into, you can see everything we've done here. So I've told it to be a container, etc. We should be able to go into settings, reveal config vars, and we can see our environment variables there. So that's cool. Now we actually need a GitHub repo to send this to. So this is going to be the final repo, but I'll just create a throwaway one just so you can see the process quickly. Cool, so I've linked that. Cool, so git status. And what we'll do before we chuck it into Git is we need a git ignore. And we're going to ignore .env because that's got sensitive information. PyCache we don't need. .vs code is specific to my code editor. We don't need that. We don't need env because that's our virtual environment. Cool, that should be about it. So you can see there's now less files. I'm just going to write a first commit really, because this is just going to be a throwaway repo. I just want to show you the process manually to get all of this set up. Oh, great. I'll just log in. I'll be back in a sec. All right. So I've just pushed the code up. And if I refresh this page, cool, we can see the codes there. This one, because it's a throwaway project, won't have a README, but that's fine. Cool. So once you've got your code on GitHub, jump into settings, jump into environments, and we're going to use the Heroku environment. And then what we're going to do here is add some secrets. So the first one is going to be Heroku email, which is that for me. And then we're going to add another one, which is going to be Heroku API key. And to get there, where's my Heroku tab? To get there, we just need to click on our account and go to account settings. And we scroll all the way down. I'm going to regenerate mine just to keep my account safe, of course. But you just go to API key section and then go back to GitHub. Chuck it in there. Cool, so that's all set up. And you'll notice in actions, it's actually tried running this action, which is kind of cool. So let's see what failed. So it failed to log in, but that's probably because we've only just set the environment variables. So I'm just going to rerun that job. So when you hear of things like automated pipelines, CI/CD, and other fancy terms like that, this is really all it means, is that when you push your code, something builds it, compiles it, whatever, packages it up, and deploys it to development, production, somewhere in the cloud. Cool, so I'm getting forbidden. I don't have access to migrate weather, and that's because I actually named it migrate weather 2. But I copied it from the answer, which was wrong. So I'll just update that. So make sure you use the correct app name. So you notice here when I push the code, boom, just wait here for a little bit. You'll see this orange light. So you can see there's a check that's queued, and you just click on details. So it's just waiting for a runner. So the runner is just like a little worker that will pick up this job and then go through all the steps that we've defined. And it's usually pretty quick. So we should be able to go back to dashboard, migrate weather 2. And there's no latest activity yet, but it should hopefully be coming through soon. Just refresh the page. Just have to be a bit patient. Sometimes it runs faster than others. All right, that took a really long time. Took 1:34, but we're back now. So you can see it's added the git remote Heroku. It's logged in and it's released the image migrate weather 2. And it's done some cleanup afterwards and the job was successful. We have a green tick. If we go back to the repo, you can see a green tick and our environment Heroku is active. Sweet. So if we refresh our app page, we can now see we've deployed it. Let's see if it works. So open app. Sweet. Migrate weather to Heroku app. Yep. Current weather. Boom. Forecast. Boom. I think we're all good to go. Alrighty, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial where we've actually built the Flask app, put it in a Docker container, set up Heroku and GitHub Actions. It is a lot to take in, but even if you just go through this, copy paste the code, and get a little bit of understanding what's going on, I think it will really help you advance in your skills when it comes to CI/CD, containerized applications, and development in the cloud. And I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks again. See ya.